Yeah! Hiya! Yes! Bada boom. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for the Fringe FM, coming at you live from the middle of nowhere, the center of everywhere, here once again to give you yet another scrumtrelescent dose of conversational boogie. This is Shift Happens. Yes, off to a late start, stumbling right out of the gate. Fresh back from Conscious Life Expo, which I think is how all people come back from the Conscious Life Expo. Stumbling. But, and I mean that in a great, positive way. And, yes, thank you. Welcome back. Yes, thank you. And, so I guess we're not, we're having some problems with the network, and we're not able to be on the Fringe FM right now. Which I don't know why I'm telling you, because if you're listening, you're not on the Fringe FM, so it doesn't apply to you. But so there you go. If you or your friend or somebody you know is having trouble listening to the show, they're gonna have to go to Spreaker or ShiftHappensRadio.com or Spotify to listen. So there you have it. And joining me as per usual is our co-host, the one and only JP. What's happening, brother?
I have stumbled back. I don't know if you can hear me, but I've stumbled back from the expo, and I only had about a third of what you did. How's it going, Gigi?
It's all going somewhere, my friend. And that was pretty good. Your audio came in perfectly. There was no. I think that issue is solved.
It was me all along. I needed headphones.
Oh my goodness, that could have been it. Dragon Rose, that is a great question. That a lot of people want an answer to, and we do not have an answer to that at the moment. So, but I guess the answer is not yet. And there's a lot of reasons for that, and so we'll see, but not yet. But yeah, so me and JP got to hang out for the first time in real time over at the Conscious Life Expo.
We did. We have dropped the veil, and it was great. It was really incredible to see you, hang out, and meet some really interesting people, for sure.
Absolutely. We also got to hang out with Jess Rogie from the Fringe FM here as well. And you know what's crazy, folks? I don't know. Should I? I don't know. I'll just say it anyway.
Yeah.
Dude, turns out, so Jess was telling me all weekend, like, hey, like, it depends on if my sister can take me out there or not, my car, blah, 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 blah. And she kept mentioning her sister. And so I thought it was just going to be some random person that I never met. But she turns up with Kelly Farmer. Turns out Kelly Farmer is her sister. And
I was all up in that whole thing, man. I had no idea until we started getting into it and talking.
Yeah, it was so wild. It was like, Kelly from Explaining Esoterica. And, she's been on our show a couple of times, and I've been on her show a couple of times. And she's been a pretty big part of the community the last few years. And, just super random. Actually, turns out
I did not know you knew her too. Yeah, that's funny. We found that out at different points in the evening, and when I found out, you were somewhere else. Maybe you're in the buffet line or something. But she and I started talking, and when she told me, I didn't even know more recent stuff. Oh yeah, she did tell me about her visits to your show. But then we got into like some more stuff, and I had known about her for years, and it was because of a crazy story that I got, what I had envisioned as some kind of online story, and I got really into it. Like at the time, I was into it, and I met a bunch of other podcasts. I don't know if you know CW Chanter, and it was part of a moment in time where I had found some really interesting podcasters, and I went down that rabbit hole of what she had been talking about, and it was awesome. She was telling me all about it. I almost forgotten about it, but yeah, amazing stuff. Small world.
Yeah, small world indeed, Dragon Rose. Small world indeed. And but yeah, that was a lot of fun all weekend, getting to see everybody. I mean, you name it, from Alan Sheffield to Linda Moulton Howe, Billy Carson, Jimmy Church. And Jimmy Church was always, hosting the after evening activities as usual. And it was really fun to hang out with him and the whole crew. And he had Jonah, Brad Harris's son, which, by the way, Brad can't be here tonight, obviously. He gives his hellos. But yeah, Jonah got a little job running Jimmy's booth the whole weekend. And,
yeah, man.
And he handled it like a champ. And no, Dragon Rose, I did not get to attend Linda's 80th birthday party. I was out running around doing some things, but we did get to hang out with her quite a bit. In fact, it turns out we ended up staying like 3 rooms down from each other, and so we ran into each other quite a few times and had some conversations. But no, I definitely missed that. But yes, Linda Moulton Howe definitely got the Lifetime Achievement Award this year, and which she's gotten a couple of those, I think, by now. That's at least her second one. Maybe the first from the Conscious Life Expo. But yeah, and she definitely deserves it. And I'll tell you what, man, she may be 80 years old, but that doesn't mean that she doesn't stay up till 2 or 3 in the morning and keeps the party going with the rest of us. And it was really cool to see. And she's just full of information, just ready to talk and share information at all times, whether it's 3 in the morning or 8 in the morning. And absolutely fantastic.
She's one person that has maintained a level of provocative conversations for even just as long as I've known.
Yeah, and
25 years.
Yeah, and we talked about her coming on the show, and she said she's down. So that's been a long show coming.
Oh yeah,
this whole time we've been doing this for 5 years. We never had her on here, so definitely looking forward to that. And
I did get a chance to speak to Jimmy Church for a minute and got some crazy in-depth history and background into his career. It was really awesome. I can't really put it in words. It was really fun. I wish I had seen Brad though.
Did you mention who you were, or did you just go up as a random?
Yes, I did, and yeah, I don't know if he was kind of tipped off to who I am, but he was like, oh yeah, he was kind of familiar, and I think with who I am, and yeah, we got right into it. He was really cool, man. I wanted to hang out with him longer.
He's a cool dude, man. He's a cool dude. And yeah, I told him that you were coming. And
Nice.
Although I didn't get a proper chance to introduce you personally, yeah, I told him you were coming. So that's good. But yeah, I wish you could have been there the other nights as well. Just so much cool stuff went on, and I don't think we really have time to go into it, but man, there was one cool experience I had, this device called the Vibe. I don't think we really... Yes, it is live, Bob Tuscan. Absolutely live. Thanks for hanging out in the chat room. And but yeah, I'll put it this way. You guys have heard me talk about the flotation tanks, right? And this is something up there in terms of the float tank, as far as epicness and healing, and it's really special. It has to do with, you put these pads on your legs and your arms and your head and your chest, and then you completely blindfold yourself, and then you go off into this auditory sort of, they just play all these resonances and frequencies, but they're all synced up to these vibrational pads that are all over your body that trigger in different ways that are synchronized to the audio that's happening. And it's one of the most extremely psychedelic and at the same time like psychedelically healing things I've ever tried in a long time. And Bob Tuscan says he's heard of this before, and I was going to say I'm surprised I haven't heard of this before.
I haven't.
But the dude's name is Steven Schwartz, and we're going to be having him on the show. He gave me a signed book and all that good stuff, and we had a really good hangout after the fact, and so he's going to be coming on pretty soon as well. And I would love to talk more about that, but I just don't have the words. I think we're going to have to wait until Steven Schwartz comes on here and explains exactly what this technology does. It's really just absolutely amazing technology, and I can't believe it's existed for several years and I didn't know about it until
always seems to happen that way.
Right, there you go.
There was another product kind of going around that I witnessed, and it was sort of like a handheld electronic sort of vibing machine, and he basically just put it on the side of my body, but I felt the waves through my body, and it was a real interesting kind of take on maybe an older technology, just kind of tweaked a little bit in a way I hadn't seen before. So there was some interesting products there for sure.
Yeah, and as always, everything from the bar to the cafe was about $17 billion just to get anything. Dude, I remember my last day, they had a little, like the smallest bottle of Jack Daniels that you can get. Like, not the single shots, but an actual bottle, but the small one. Mm-hmm. Like, normally would cost like $8 or $9. And I went up there. I was like, all right, I was kind of checking out, so I was like on my way out. It's like, I have a few minutes to wait. Like, let's see what we can do. $35. What? 30? Like, I actually had to ask her. Like, I was like, what did you say? She was like, $35.
And why? Why? It just makes no sense to me at all. It's obviously just for a few people, not for the people. Yeah. That's not fair.
Yeah, and then, a couple of nights before that, I went to go, me and Brad were hanging out, and he was like, hey, go grab me a beer with you. I was like, all right. So I'm in line. I got just two tall boys. Like, one, like, Modelo, and one, I forgot what Brad had. But just two regular-ass tall boys. And then she rings me up. It was like $30 for two tall boys. And,
4 mixed drinks and chips and salsa was $70.
Dude, yeah. See, that's the thing that they everything else about the Conscious Life Expo is absolutely fantastic. And actually, I don't even think that's really that's not really their fault. They don't really, that's the hotel that's doing that.
That's all the hotel.
Yeah. So there's really nothing that can be done about it. But yeah, that it definitely
I did enjoy the crowd there. It was a interesting, I want to say unique, but obviously it was just an interesting crowd, and a lot of interesting conversations towards the end. really started meeting some more people that didn't know about the show, and kind of talk to them a little bit. Hopefully they're listening. We'll see. But it was just a great vibe over there for sure. I didn't have any problems.
Yeah, no, I mean, talk about running into people from every walks of life. I mean, every type of person and race and nationality that you can possibly imagine was represented there. I mean, you name it, from South American shamans, to Japanese, psychic healers. I mean, you name it. Everybody was there. Everybody was there, and everybody was getting along. Everybody's having a great time. And also shout out to Mike from Florida. If you're listening, great to hang out with him again. He usually shows up for these. And just shout out, I don't want to take too long here, so shout out to everybody. Just shout out to everybody that showed up. That was fantastic. That was an absolute...
I know I miss some great workshops, Gigi. I know there was a lot of stuff that I kept looking at schedule. What can I do? And as usual, ran out of time for a lot of what I wanted to see. But were you able to catch any good speakers or any live stuff going on? Or were you just mostly...
Yeah. I was mostly running around and networking, but I did get to see... I was going to see Linda Moulton Howe's paid workshop, but then you and Jess and Kelly showed up, so I decided to miss it. And then so I saved that ticket for the next day, and I went to see Billy Carson's, and that was absolutely fantastic. And which, by the way, that's another person. See, that's the great thing about these conferences, folks, is we're booked for like the next 2.5 months just from running into people and networking alone. And we've got 2.5 months of great, maybe even 3 months of great guests coming up for you. New guests, fresh faces, great information coming up on this show very soon. And so there we go. And no shout out for the LA Hilton. Yeah, I don't, it's kind of a... It's like thank you, but it's like not that much,
I will say this. Yeah. I will say this. It was nice to not worry about the whole mask thing. You could if you wanted to, but you didn't have to if you didn't want to, and there were no questions asked. And I thought that was bold, and maybe that was part of their huge prices for alcohol and all. Who knows? But at least for that, it was really nice.
Yeah, unless you went into the little cafe, they definitely made you wear a mask when you went in there, or else that old guy would yell at you. But other than that, because the way they did it, they tested you on the spot when you went into the conference, and if you pass the test, you're good to go. If you didn't pass, well, you're out. Unless you had a vaccine card, then you're allowed in anyway. And that's to get into the main conference part. And according to the folks I talked to, nobody tested positive for COVID the whole weekend. So yeah, it was pretty laid back. No, we didn't have to really wear a mask except for that one little tiny spot where you buy $30 bottles of tiny little bottles of whiskey, right? And that was about it. So absolutely. So props to yeah. So how about that? Shout out to LA Hilton for that right there.
Shout out. All right, yeah. I'll do it too. Shout out to Hilton if they need it,
dude. And so there we go. And let's see. Along with that, well, let's see if we can get in. Nope. Yep, still not on the fringe, and nobody's doing anything about it. So we're just going to rock and roll right here on Spreaker and Spotify and YouTube and whatever else we have on our lonesome. So there we go. And let's see. Kat says nobody tested positive because beers over $15 a piece. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone ended up being negative or in a negative mood because.
And let's see. Dragon Rose says mask mandates ended here in Nevada yesterday. Nice. Good for you guys. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. And yeah, I was going to say
almost
something.
feel. I don't know about you, but you can almost feel the swarm of. I don't know what happened, but my phone must have gone off a minimum of 50 times today. Like just tons of phone calls, and it happened yesterday. It started towards the end of the day, but today it felt like business as usual was like just blowing up. Pretty interesting.
Yeah, no, I've had a lot of, dude. You don't even want to know about my phone. I mean, it just brr, brr, all day, every day, just non-absolute stop, and today was no different, dude. You know what I've been noticing, JP? I've been getting spammed on Discord. Has this ever happened to you? Like, every time I check Discord, I have like 15 new private messages from different spam people and they're all trying to do the same thing. They're trying to get me on their cryptocurrency Discord channel.
Oh, yeah. I did get the crypto thing, and it was a lot of updates. You're right. I did end up getting something like that. I hadn't seen it before until you mentioned it. I hadn't even thought about it.
Dude, yeah. I'm getting like 10 or 15 messages a day. It's getting out of control. Like, I didn't know you could get spammed like that on Discord. That's really disappointing. But,
I didn't know that either. It's a first, and that's weird, though. I mean, they must be going through friends lists and hitting the same people.
Yeah, somebody ratted me out to somebody because
who's the mole?
Oh my goodness, it is quite annoying. It is quite annoying. But you know what? Enough of all this. It's time to. Mike J says no sound. Well, you know what, my friend? That is your problem because it's not on our end. Every
sound meter is working.
Yep, everything is fine over here. So there you go. Now, with that, without any further ado, without any further willy-nilly whatsoever, we've got our guest for the evening, the guerrilla novelist, Casper Mother Bleepin' Parks. What's happening, Casper?
Hey, I finally made it in here. A little late start, but it's okay.
Yeah.
We'll catch up. I'm not seeing it live on Spotify, but I don't pay for Spotify either. So.
Oh, actually, you know what? Good point. I think it's just the replays that go to Spotify. I don't know.
YouTube's the same way. I think it's just the replays that can pop up in there.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, good. I'm glad you pointed that out. Yes, replays are on Spotify, folks.
Which is okay.
Yes.
Which is cool. I mean, you got episodes going back to 2017 up on Spotify, so we have to bump Joe Rogan off his pedestal. Boom!
That will give all of us a fighting chance once he's gone.
Well, I could say a few things that might put us on the up there. If it gets circulated, that's the thing. If it gets circulated. But Mike, I don't know if you're listening on a computer. Sometimes you can hit mute up on the browser, or you can hit mute within the speaker chat program. You can also hit mute on that. So I've had that before. Everybody else was hearing it, and it turned out to be the browser, or I had mute at the Spreaker website.
Yeah. So Mike J says he signed out and signed back in. Yeah, I guess that worked.
Yeah. Okay. All right, cool.
And what was I about to say?
One of these days I got to go to a conference, but they're so expensive.
Oh, well,
it's insane.
That's why you go with friends and you all share a room and you split the spot and you split the meals, and that's how you do it. That's how you make it work. And if not split the meals, then you split to Carl's Jr. down the street. And
Oh yeah. I'm sure they were busy. No, so this was in L.A. at the L.A. Hilton.
Yep. Yeah.
Oh,
Right.
okay.
Right in the middle of all that action there. Yeah.
Yeah, I hate to see what it costs us to get an admission for that Conscious Life Expo. I guess there's different tiers or different levels you can buy tickets for.
Dude, I'll tell you what. So we officially, as Shift Happens, we got 4 free passes. One went to me, one went to Brad, one went to JP, one went to Jess Rogie from the Fringe FM, and then Jimmy covered Michelle and Jonah. And then, but by the end of the weekend, I had like 3 extra free passes. And,
Oh, wow.
And I'm not even sure. I don't even remember how or why. But
you know what? If I ever go, I'm gonna have to get a pass from either you or Jimmy to get in. You know,
well,
the cost of going.
Don't let that stop.
Yeah, the cost of going from here, where I'm at, the Great Lakes, or something like that, with my pickup truck. Because I can't fly, so, you know, and I don't have a smart ID. You know, I got the old school driver's license yet.
Well, I don't think I don't think the smart ID applies until next year, isn't it?
No, I think it's already applying.
Well, I got through just fine at the airport.
You can fly domestically without.
Oh, I think it's
okay.
internationally, right? That you gotta.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Now I was gonna go to a show the first week of March, to a concert in Chicago, and so I click on the venue for all the rules. You got to wear a mask inside, which I'm not going to argue with. That's fine. I don't care. But you got to have proof of vaccination 14 days prior to the show to get in. I thought, oh man, vaccine passport. Holy crap! That's the first time I've encountered that. You know, and hold on one second. I got to let the cat out.
That's right. And while he does that,
I will. Oh, yeah, I will say it's a lot like a Chihuahua barking.
Sorry about that, cat.
No worries.
He's sitting at the door just meowing, and I'm thinking, it's probably on their mic. I better let him out a minute. Well, it's Charlie. He's like, give or take, this spring he's 18 years old in human years. So he's an old timer kitty. You know, he's an old timer kitty. You know, so but yeah, real ID. Yeah, I don't know. Mine's not a real ID, but I imagine it will be because my license expires next year, so in January.
Well, the one I have seems pretty real. It works for me. But I can't wait to have that conversation once I go to an airport and they won't let me in. Well, I'll try to avoid that conversation. But
I've got a lot. I've got a lot on that too. I'm going to stay away. I won't touch it.
Well, you know what I'm wondering is, because it was on 60 Minutes this past April of 2021. They had it's about 2 minutes and 17 seconds. They have a gel chip. I think we talked about this before. They have it's a kind of green, but it's gel. It's about the size of a grain of rice, and it injects up underneath the skin. And what it does is it transmits. The Pentagon developed this, and it transmits a signal if you get infected with a virus of any kind, a Bluetooth signal. They say you can't track it, but if it can transmit a Bluetooth signal, and there's a phone close by that has Bluetooth on it or whatever, it can pick it up, and the phone can then transmit to the towers. But anyway, so it can transmit via Bluetooth to notify the sailor, or doing a test in the Navy, that he or she is sick. And they take this thing. It's about looks to be about a couple inches square, like they use for diabetics in their arm to keep track of their blood sugar. It pulls out a droplet of blood. Excuse me. And they stick it in this machine. It's about the size of a voting machine, and like the small cubicle one, not the big tall ones. And in a matter of seconds, it'll tell you what you're infected with. If you're infected with the COVID, or you're infected with this flu or that flu, or this cold or that cold or whatever, it'll tell you immediately what you're infected with. And I'm thinking, that's a drop of blood, and they've been stuffing these swabs up people's noses. Why don't we have this little blood test thing widely available? You poke it, get a drop of blood, you stick it in the machine analyzes it, boom. It sounds like Star Trek, but it's real. You watch the video in 60 Minutes. And, a couple problems I have with that gel biochip. They say it doesn't contain other data. but it can be programmed to know that there's a virus and then transmit a Bluetooth signal. I'm sure they can add other data to it, like I would think. I don't know, though. ID and stuff like that. But can you imagine if that chip rolled out and you had to put your hand out to get scanned to prove that you weren't sick with the virus because of this green gel chip? And this is a real thing, then. You can go on YouTube and type in 60 minutes, go to their April section on this chip. And the last in the report, they're going to test it on a whole ship. But I haven't heard anything about it since. I couldn't find any more information on it. But can you imagine you have to go to a store and put your hand out to get a scan to see if you have the COVID or whatever the next pandemic is? Because the chip will tell the people there if you're sick or not. Can you imagine that? You have to whip that chip, but you have to whip your hand out to get scanned to know you're not infected with something. That's really what it is.
Yeah, I really,
I could see that happening.
It seems like it's going that way, but good Lord, I really hope it doesn't go that way entirely.
It's insanity. Well, the thing is, they would go, oh, this is April 2021. Oh, Biden did that. No, Biden didn't do that.
Biden barely ate his breakfast. He's not doing anything.
No. And that thing was under development probably at least in 2020. It takes years to develop something like that. It might have even been in development in 2016 or 2017. Who knows? And I was just like thinking, wow, because in my book Coming from Darkness, I have that biochip implant, which I describe a little different than this one, but it's still, that's not an original thing that I created. That's been around for a while. It was just something that I stuck in the story because I wanted to raise awareness of it. This is why it's in there. Part of the reason. And I think society's headed that direction, unfortunately, between now and 2035. And it's cute, guys. Thanks. We have this. We're all on Skype where we can see each other, and we can put these background things in there.
Look at that!
And I had a setting behind some like ancient thing from like the Aztec age, and these guys just changed it to a birthday party scene. Now we got cake and ice cream.
Oh, very
fantastic. Anyway, so you know what I'm laughing at. But yeah, I could see this, this chip rolling out like that, and it's crazy, but they really backed off on it, and you ain't hearing much about it. And I wonder if that's not because, there's such a anti-vaccine push right now, and everything else that's going on. So I don't know, it's just craziness. But GG, now I don't know if you want to go there or not, GG. It's definitely.
It's certainly a place we've avoided going there really hard, but I do. I kind of get the feeling that
Gigi and I
things
talked
are changing. I don't know where it's going.
Gigi and I talked about this earlier this afternoon on the phone. With disclosure in the elections and the political conspiracy thing. Right. You want me to run over that real fast, Gigi, just for the hell of it?
Yeah, let's go. Let's go
for it. Okay. All right. Here's again. Now this is just opinion, speculation. Subject changes, new facts become available, and or what we think is fact gets disproven at this point. Okay. All right. In 2016, you had Hillary Clinton and John Podesta. They were really, really pushing hard on Roswell, which is basically disclosure. Okay. So they were really, really pushing hard on that. I cannot find the video anywhere. Gigi at one time thought he recalled seeing it, but where Hillary was sitting on a small stage, like a folding metal chair with a small audience, someone asked her about Roswell and everything, and she said, she joked, if I have to go to the Roswell with the U.S. Army behind me, guns drawn, we'll get to the bottom of it, and she laughed. And then about 2 weeks later, Pizzagate hit, which was just totally just mind control, man. It just had to be. I don't see any other way around that. It's so ludicrous. But at any rate, Hillary was pushing for disclosure. Then when you got real, real close to the election, like days before, all of a sudden, and again, it's according to my memory on media reports, Steve Bannon tells Trump, oh, hey, dude, you got to go to Michigan. You got to go to Michigan. So he goes to Michigan real quick, okay? And then all of a sudden you had Trump didn't win the popular vote, but he supposedly pulled off an electoral college. And keep in mind, there's been problems with all this before. You look at the Bush-Gore election; it happened in Florida. So and the Supreme Court kind of threw us a president that wasn't really actually elected, even with the electoral college. But at any rate, only two sidetracked on that. But so all of a sudden you had Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. Okay, and you had, according to the Independent out of the UK, you had computer scientists in those three states, which I know for sure included the University of Michigan's computer science department. These people have PhDs, are like mathematicians. They're not stupid.
Right.
Okay, they spotted an anomaly. Again, I'm not saying the machines are rigged. I'm not saying anything like that. Just simple, there was an anomaly. Okay, and they didn't really say what the anomaly was. All right. The Democratic National Committee in the Clinton campaign refused to do a recount. They didn't want the machines examined. They didn't want the recount done. They didn't care. It's like they didn't care. Okay. Jill Stein raises around $3 million. It was $900,000, I believe, give or take, to cover the recount in Michigan. So she raised the money to cover the recount. She could legally do it. Okay. The Republican National Committee with Trump's team went in there, fought tooth and nail, and halted the recount, halted everything. Came to a dead stop. No investigations at all in that election. None. Zip, zero, zilch. And these are the people right now screaming about election fraud, right? And integrity, and we need to look at every dime, right? So my theory is that they shut Hillary Clinton down on the election if the election was rigged. Not saying it was, not saying in 2016 it wasn't. You can't say for sure either way, okay? Well, if you look at it, you could say this is possible. They shut Hillary Clinton out of office because she was going to move forward with UFO disclosure or Roswell, and then Trump got it if it was rigged and if that happened. Not saying it did, not saying it didn't. All right, that's how Trump ended up in office. Okay, it's possible. And then what we got now is we now have the UAP thing, UAP task force. We have people that came forward without saying any names. If I doubt they would even be part of, if something happened behind closed doors, they would not be part of what took place behind closed doors. But doesn't mean they would get there. They were probably given the green light to go, and they don't know really some other stuff. But if that happened, so now I think as a consolation prize, we're getting this like UAP task force and everything else, because they locked Hillary out because of the UAP UFO disclosure Roswell that she was talking about doing. And I believe that's what happened. I don't think the 2020 election was rigged because they knew that Trump was going to scream fraud, and they dotted their I's and crossed their T's, and they're extremely, extremely careful in the last election. I don't think it was rigged. If it was, it might have been rigged to make the election look closer than what it was. Instead of losing by 7 million votes, what if you lost by 10, 15, or 20 million votes, and it made it look closer to make the country appear more divided than it really is? But again, we don't know for sure.
Yeah, there's
anything like this. We don't know for sure.
There's no way to know for sure, but one thing we do know for sure is that the same voting machines that have been used since the initial Bush Jr. election are still used today, which you know about this, Casper, the whole documentary about it called
Hacking Democracy.
Hacking Democracy, right. And that documentary proves through and through that these voting machines were not only changeable, they were designed to have the votes changed without any trace of who changed them. And those are the same machines that were used in this last election as well.
Yeah, and in 2016 we talked about this, about investigations with money laundering and stuff like that. I think it was in, give or take, June 2016 we talked about that, and with the organized crime out of Ukraine and Russia. So I really, as far as UFO secrets, I doubt seriously they gave Trump anything. I doubt it. I find that to be highly unlikely.
Yeah.
I find that to be highly unlikely. just looking at his personality and everything. And again, I'm not a psychologist or psychiatrist or anything like that. But yeah, if when someone joins the Marine Corps or the military, Marine Corps is probably the toughest one for boot camp for regular forces. They want to break somebody down physically and mentally, and we blew through a break. It doesn't matter, does it?
Yeah, I think we're just not going to take a break. We're just going to keep going.
Anyway, so they, excuse me. Oh, man, I lost my train of thought there. Choo. Hold on. God, I lost my train of thought, Gigi. I'm terrible. Should hit rewind.
Well, we're talking about how there's no way that they told Trump about all the,
Yeah, I don't think
UFO
so.
briefings or anything.
Yeah, there's no way they would have told Trump anything. I doubt Biden even knows everything, seriously. But
even if they told him,
yeah,
he probably forgot by now.
I know I was talking about the Marine Corps in the boot camp. Okay, if you're trying to break down somebody and they're going to like boot camp, they break them both down mentally and physically.
Mm-hmm.
Mentally, emotionally, and physically. And in the United States right now, if you look at it, we're almost, we broke physically because of the pandemic, whether that was intended or not. I don't think that was intentional. I think it just kind of happened, but whether it came out of a lab or not, I'm leaning toward probably, but who knows, is you break them down mentally, physically, and emotionally. This country is being broken down physically because of the money aspect of it. Middle class can work, you poor can't afford an apartment anymore. It's incredibly bad. So you're breaking them down physically that way. Plus you had all the emotional breaking, where there's Black Lives Matter. You had the Trump thing in January 6th, and it's still kind of ongoing. And you had all that other stuff, and it's just like they're breaking down the country mentally so they can rebuild it into something else. And it's possible there might be 2 or 3 sides that are trying to fight for how they want to rebuild the country. Build back better, make America great again. Let's have another slogan. We could be looking at possible massive MK Ultra, at work here. A type of MK Ultra. I'm not saying the CIA did it with MK Ultra, but MK Ultra is a mind controlling program that it was in, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Eugene JP, I think it was in the 1980s that the CIA admitted, after it was exposed, an MK Ultra mind control program which used drugs and stuff like that, and said that they had discontinued, but they had been doing it since the 1950s, which was a mind control program, and they didn't do it. But mind control, if they can get into your emotions, they get the window open for your emotions. They'll grab a hold of your emotions and use that. I mean, Gigi and I talked about this bill right now that's it's been sitting there for, 2019, 2020. It's been in there for a while. It was in there under the previous reality star, and it's under the current reality star, or puppets, whatever. Where when you have a phone, it's an Android, iPhone, or whatever, okay, most of these phones will automatically upload to the cloud when you take a picture with your phone. A lot of times you don't even know it's doing that. That happened with my phone here. I have an Android, and all of a sudden I went in one day to look at my Google Plus or my Google account, and all of a sudden it's like boom. There's all these pictures I took with my phone. There's the dogs, the cats, snow outside, rainbow that I took, stuff like that. And I'm going, what the hell, man? I didn't get permissions. I don't want this uploaded here. So I deleted it all and went in, turned the apps off and everything. Phone does a reset or updates. All of a sudden it's back on again. I turned it back off again. But iPhones do the same thing. They all upload to the cloud. Excuse me. And there's a bill. I got to take a swig of something. Sorry.
No worries. I could just jump in here for a second, give you a little bit. You've been going quick, but I just wanted to add, and I have been at homes where the people who live there are seniors, like 80 years and older, and I've watched television on their television with them as we talk, and it is amazing at the difference in commercials that run in their house versus the TV that runs in my house.
Yeah.
It's really and so they oftentimes would point out like the strangeness of a medication or the strangeness of something that ran as an ad on their television, and I would explain to them, you may have been discussing some of these issues. You may have been saying, oh, maybe there's a new medication I should be on or something, but the TV records it and promotes as such, and it's very individualized experience.
Absolutely, they do. Absolutely,
yeah.
They
but
do.
the bill I'm talking about, I have to go look it up real quick on Twitter. I could probably find it. Is so when you take a picture with your phone and it uploads to the cloud automatically. I got my phone. I got those settings all turned on, but is they're going to scan those images, okay, and create a database that the government's going to have access to help save the children, okay? And now there are certain aspects of the bill I'm not necessarily opposed to. For example, they want social media to start, if you're posting something on social media, you're in somebody else's house or place of business, and you're posting that stuff up there on public consumption, and if they're running a thing through there and they find something on there that shouldn't be on there, it's probably illegal, go after the people, man, shut them down, but to monitor everything from your phone to the cloud, that's a whole different matter. And, you got to remember back when Gigi and I talked about this earlier, he was probably around 13 when 9/11 happened. And they brought all these laws in all of a sudden, and Edward Snowden confirmed what we already all knew. But they recorded all this metadata, all your phones, your locations, all that stuff. And about the same time, maybe 3 or 4 years after 9/11, they passed a law that all phones are required to have GPS tracking in them. All of them, period. Even burner phones. Okay, because I remember being forced to upgrade. They sent me a free cell phone because my old one didn't have the GPS tracking in it. But
wow.
And these laws are only supposed to be temporary. Well, here we are 20 plus years later, and they're still here, and they're still grabbing all that data. And now we just found breaking news today. The CIA was gathering data on all kinds of people, probably going back to the previous guy that was in the White House. So, and it's still ongoing. That they're grabbing more data than they're supposed to. We're losing more and more and more of our freedoms as we go here. It's I understand the masks mandates, and I understand the vaccine stuff and all that. That's all fine, but everybody's upset about that, and I understand that. But you're missing some of the finer, smaller stuff that they're doing. That not really behind our back, but everybody's so drowned with other information, you can't keep track of it all. It's like JP said too. It's all over the news constantly. You can't keep track of stuff, man.
Well, I think I was also aside from being on the news and that's a whole. I hope we can find the right person to come in and talk to us about news cycles and how the news is really created. I know there's people out there, but I think I was also pointing out the fact that at my age, I'm 50 or about to turn 50, and it's clear. It's clear as day that I've got to rely on my kind of old skills. But for new stuff, I'm like way outdated. And I don't even know where it's all hitting me from. But the television is certainly really an interesting thing when you think about generationally who's being affected and how. I don't even think most people realize it.
Yeah. Somebody asked about the Ukraine and Russia in the chat room. Real quick. Okay, so when the Soviet Union dissolved and the Cold War ended, we had both Ukraine and Georgia especially. We had Russia or the Soviet Union had nuclear weapons stored there, and both nations. So a bunch of those nuclear weapons went missing. Never found them. Okay. now NATO and the United Nations and everybody else all kind of got together, and Russia was, I think, on the side with this, but still involved, is we convinced, I shouldn't say we because I wasn't involved, but NATO and all the other nations convinced the Ukraine to give up its nuclear weapons that it had inherited from the Soviet Union. Okay. And Russia's not going to invade and blah, 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 blah. And I think we kind of more or less unofficially got the word that they wouldn't do that. And so the Ukraine got rid of all the nuclear weapons that it had that we were still aware of. Not, who knows what happened to the ones that went missing, but the ones that they still had accounted for, they gave up all those nuclear weapons in the early 1990s, early mid-1990s. So then Russia went in and grabbed the peninsula of Crimea from the Ukraine, and it went in and grabbed part of the land from the nation of Georgia, moved in like 40 or 50 miles, and grabbed it along the border in another spot in the middle of the country. It's kind of weird how they did it. So I don't know if Russia is going to make a move into the Ukraine or not. I could see where they might, if they went in there, it would be to install a different leader and then kind of pull back a little bit. And it would kind of more be like a puppet government that would, they could say, oh, it's its own government. I could see that happening.
Well, here's my question, though, is what it, like, Russia is such a huge entity, and Ukraine is such a small, tiny little country. Why do they care so much about having this tiny little plot of land?
Resources.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and that's why for at least 500,000, 2,000 years, there's been so much conflict in Ukraine because of all the resources there. It has a lot of resources. So, and you got to remember, too, Ukraine was once part of the Soviet Union. So a lot of these people that have been accused of being mobsters have dual citizenship. They have citizenship in Russia, because they're probably like my age or older, and they have citizenship in Ukraine because they're Ukrainian, so they have dual citizenship. You know, which goes back to the whole Russia investigation, which really was, and everybody is under the impression that the Mueller report found everybody innocent. That isn't what happened. They just released some more redacted versions of that this morning, and it was like, I read some of the stuff that was in there involving, you know, getting passwords from questionable sources and going into the website using passwords that were hacked and stuff like that. Somebody gives you a password for a website and you go into it and it's not your website, you're hacking. You basically, even if someone gave you the password, you're hacking in. If they gave it to you and that password was stolen. And they decided not to press charges on these people. It was I don't want to say names, but they were pretty well-known people. You know, if you or I did something like that, we'd be arrested. You know, make no mistake.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and Gigi and I talked about this too. We talked about justice a little while ago in the United States. Okay, here's the question that no one's asking. Well, I'm going to answer the question. Gigi helped, and I talked about this earlier. Is they've arrested roughly 700 and some people over January 6th. All right, and I haven't seen any of them get a trial by jury. All right, and there's a reason for that. Okay,
oh, yeah.
It's in the Constitution. So what you have, you know, the prosecutor, the defense, and most of these guys probably have public defenders because they probably can't afford a regular lawyer. Even if they can, it doesn't matter. And you have the judge. And what they want everybody to do is they want to do the trial without a jury, okay? And they dangle this in front of you. Okay, so if you do the trial with a jury and we find you guilty, we're going to give you 8 years in prison. However, if you do the trial without a jury and you more or less cut a plea deal right away, so that's what they want everybody to do, we'll give you 2 years of sit time in jail or 8 months, whatever, depends what they did. And then we're going to give you X number of months or years probation afterwards. And oh, by the way, when you're on probation, you have to pay us X amount of dollars a month to see the probation officer. It's a prison industrial complex at this point. And Any rate, so that's probably why they're not getting lawyers or getting trial by juries, because they're being basically told, well, if you go to trial by jury, again, I'm not saying this is happening, but I know it happens a lot with people. And if you want to take it to a trial by jury, find you guilty, you're going to get 4 years. If you don't, we're going to give you 2 plus probation. So, that's a lot how that works. And that's probably why you're not seeing a lot of these people that were arrested for January 6th having trial by juries.
So what about the cops that were literally, I've seen the videos before they were taken down, videos of police officers opening up the gates and ushering the protesters in on January 6th. What happened to those people?
I saw those. They were kind of being pushed a little bit, and I think some of those police officers, by the way, that did that, they've been like lost their jobs. I think they got reprimanded. I think some might have even gotten arrested.
But they're not going to jail, are they?
Meaning they were even though they were still Capitol Police officers, they weren't supposed to do what they were doing, or they felt so overwhelmed.
They should be doing
more to let them go.
They should be doing more jail time than anybody. I mean, they're the ones that let it happen.
Well, they were severely outnumbered. I mean, we had 150 law enforcement officers injured and/or a couple killed. Even if they didn't die on the day of. One died the day of, but I think a couple died later. And it's still, it's insane how that happened. I mean, it's, and the whole thing is, and then Trump goes, oh, Pelosi's fault. Well, no, it's not. Trump was the one that had control of all that. That wasn't, they're not the ones that call the National Guard. That has to be done. That's done through the White House. That would have been Trump deal. So
yeah, apparently, this is pure speculation. I've heard this from several different sources, but those sources were also pure speculation. But that Trump didn't make that. He waited to make that call. Apparently, have you heard that bit of the story?
Yeah, he waited. They asked him repeatedly to make the call. He wouldn't do it. Finally got a hold of Pence to make the call, and Pence made the call.
Oh, is that what happened?
Yeah. And then Pence made a call.
Okay.
People that were in and out, and I'm not sure if this includes people bringing in Coca-Cola or not, or Diet Coke, whatever, that he was almost giddy while watching everything unfold on television live. Wow. He was kind of giddy about it. It's like, Trump's got some problems right now. I mean, he's got a lot of legal problems in New York. Georgia, I doubt they'll do anything. Wait and see. Arizona probably won't do anything. Michigan passed the buck up to the Department of Defense to do something. Yeah, but he's got some problems in New York. New York is his biggest headache right now because, financial crimes, if he's guilty, I'm not saying he is or isn't, and I'm sure this is a common practice with a lot of wealthy people or corporations. It's just, he ticked people off and they're going to go ahead and prosecute him for it, as where they might not have otherwise. That's a possibility. But, whether, you tell a bank the property's worth this much money when it's not to get a larger loan, then you turn around and you have something happens in the insurance company and you tell it the damage is more than what it really is, you get a bigger check, and you turn around and tell the local municipalities that, the property is worth 16 point some million, but you turn around and told the bank it's worth 102.5 million. That becomes financial fraud. And when you're doing that within a short period of time to each other, it didn't jump up and down that much. And the problem you might have is there's a paper trail. Even if it's electronic, there's still a paper trail. It might be an electronic paper trail, but still a paper trail. So he might be able to plead, hold on a second, let me look it up real quick. I know the phrase, plausible deniability. I'm sure if this goes to trial in New York, he's going to probably you'll probably hear the phrase plausible deniability. I mean, well, that probably happened, but I wasn't aware of it. And this was to do with corporations and a lot of wealthy people. Well, okay, we're not going to sentence you to prison, but you're going to have to pay us X amount of dollars, or that's X percentage, a negotiated percentage that he owes on back taxes, property taxes, or something. And you'll have to make it right with the bank, which you could lose some properties over it. But if he sees jail time, I'll be shocked.
I don't think it'll
but
come to that.
It's definitely going to damage his reputation. I mean, it's already,
Well, I think,
like I said, 2016. I think, just speculation, that had Clinton been elected, I think that we would have had some type of disclosure in the first 3 years she was in office, maybe 4. I think we would have had it. Because her and her husband were really big time pushing for that with Podesta, and that was something on her campaign trail that she talked about quite frequently. So, like I said, I think it's possible. And then we got the UAP task force as a consolation prize. That was given to the people that were pushing for disclosure in the political, corporate world. So, but who knows for sure either way. Again, I'm not necessarily no fan of Clinton either, so, I'm not a fan of them either. So, but yeah, I don't think Trump will see jail time, to be honest with you. I seriously doubt it.
I don't see that happening either. Now, here comes a firing comment here. Says, if the Clintons didn't see jail time, Trump should not either.
Yeah, see, and I'm not... it's not to be rude to somebody. I'm not trying to be that way at all. Is what they want everybody divided into 2 camps. You're the far left, you're the far right, and you guys got to be yelling at each other so you don't see how bad these corporations and the wealthy are screwing everybody over. They don't have everybody fighting each other. That's why I have the general attitude of, I don't like any of them. I don't care who they are. Republican, Democrat, I don't care. There's a few Democrats that I like, okay, though I don't agree with them on a lot of things. I agree with them on some things. Bernie Sanders I like a lot. Elizabeth Warren I like a lot. There's a Republican senator, I think, out of California that I'm okay with, but I don't like all his policies. But I, I don't like any of them, none of them at all, because you look at, the majority of the country. Here's an example, and this isn't, I don't want arguments on healthcare. Okay, it's just a simple fact. Okay, doesn't matter if someone's Republican or Democrat or somewhere in between, or doesn't really. They want a national healthcare program of a Medicare for all that covers 100% of everything. They want that option, so someone can either have private insurance or they can have the Medicare for all option run by the government. Okay, they want that option. They want it to be run cheaper. They want it to be run by the government, not by private corporations, because they're making so much money off us. It's incredible. And, they won't bring that to the vote. Anybody that brings up a Medicare for all option, they shut them down. They shut down Bernie Sanders. They shut down Elizabeth Warren. They shut down Andrew Yang. Anybody that brings it up, they shut them down. And that's not a political issue. That's a social issue. There's a difference, but it takes politics to solve it. But the healthcare industry in this country, we can't, the hospitals and everybody else are greed billing. And then the insurance companies are charging huge amounts of money. Then you have out-of-pocket expenses followed by deductibles. And then the insurance only covers 80% of the bill. Okay, then you got to get pre-certs and pre-authorizations, which can take 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. And it's just like, oh my word, let's try something else. This is not working. People can't afford the premiums are hundreds of dollars a month, and it's like $6,000 to $8,000 out of pocket, and $6,000 to $8,000 deductible, and then insurance only covers 80% of the bill. If somebody gets an emergency medical vac, I just saw someone on the internet recently that was used for a family member, and the medical helicopter go from point A to point B was $90,000. Okay, and in reality, helicopter fuel is expensive. Don't get me wrong, I know it is. In reality, that whole trip probably could have been done for under 10 grand or less. That's just my thought. Even with the fuel and the pilot's time and insurance and everything else, paying for the aircraft and all that, to charge somebody $90,000, that's absurd. That's absurd.
Even if I can chip in here, it strikes me as unusually cruel. It's unusually cruel when I see, especially people who can't work or are unable to really kind of even do their normal daily functions, but yet they're still expected to write that, hundreds of dollars per month check to their Medicare, whatever it is, medical, to supplement whatever kind of medical they do have. So it's real difficult to watch that. It never made sense to me.
Medicare is so screwed up right now. You've got so Medicare covers 80% of the bill. Okay, you can get exempt from the individual mandate if you're a vet. And you get health care through the VA, or I think if you're in the railroad or something. But you have an individual mandate that you have to buy at age 65. You have to go to a private insurer and buy insurance to pick up the 20% that the Medicare doesn't pick up. Well, so you buy that private insurance, but they only pay a percentage of the 20%. They don't pay the whole 20%. That Medicare didn't cover. They only pay a percentage of it. And there's some stuff they'll pay for, and some stuff they won't. So you can get real screwed over. Medicare really needs to be fixed and revamped a lot. It really, really needs to get fixed. But if you want to say that you qualify to have your Medicare premium, say you're 65, you're retired, you're getting $1,000. Average is $1,200, $1,500 for Medicare. So, did you want to break, Gigi?
No, we're not taking any breaks. No.
Okay. All right. So, let's say you're getting $1,200, $1,500 a month. That's not a lot of money. All right. So, and then they're pulling out between $150 and $200 a month on your Social Security check for a Medicare premium. Every time they give you like a $10 cost of living adjustment, COLA. They've been doing this for decades, since the 1980s at least. Whenever they give you, like, say, if somebody gets hypothetically, they get a $10 increase and their Social Security check every month because of cost of living adjustment known as COLA. Okay, what Medicare does, Medicare turns around, which again is still the government, and they'll grab like $6 or $7 back of that $10 increase because they increased the premium for Medicare. So they're clawing back over half of it. So they actually get maybe $3 or $4 a month because Medicare clawed back the rest of it. It's really not much of an increase at all. I mean, they can get a Happy Meal. And you save that toy for the grandkids, because they can't afford to buy them something. If you want, there's a way to qualify to get your Medicare premium waived. But this is and I spoke to Medicare about this because I was curious. So I called them up and talked to them, is you have to contact the local Medicaid office. Like in Wisconsin, for example, Medicaid is called Badger Care, and every state still have a different name for it. Okay, some call it Medicare, but some will call it like Wisconsin Badger Care. That confuses people who are older. Okay, you have to they then have to download a PDF form off the internet, print it out, fill it out, and submit that to the Medicaid office for the state that they live in. Now, the Medicaid office will then contact the state that the person's living in to make sure it's okay to waive that person's Medicare premium. Okay, then the state will probably look at the tax returns or whatever and go, yeah, go ahead and do that. Okay, then Medicaid has to contact the Social Security office and the Medicare office to tell them to stop taking out the Medicare premium of $150, $200 a month, or $250, depends how much money their check is to stop taking that money out because the person doesn't have enough money to live on. You got to jump through all those hoops just to get your Medicare premium waived. All that red tape. And it's like, but when they did these stimulus checks, no problem. IRS check, everything was good. If they really cared about the American senior citizens in this country, I don't care if it's a Republican or Democrat, if they really cared about American senior citizens, they would go in and say, you know what, the IRS should automatically notify Social Security and Medicare that this person's income is at or below the poverty line. You need to waive their Medicare premium. That should go automatic, because everybody has to buy Medicare at age 65. Okay, the exception, maybe the railroad. Even if you're a vet, you still have to buy Medicare, but you don't have to buy the supplemental from a private insurer if you have VA health care. They just make the stuff so complicated. But that should automatically be waived. The IRS should contact the Social Security office, or they should run it and go, okay, yeah, boom, 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 bam. They did it fine for the stimulus checks. They should be doing that automatically for American senior citizens, but they're not.
Absolutely.
Because they want that money coming in. They want that money coming in. They want that money coming in. They want to keep everybody, keeping everybody broke. So people can't live. So I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm just getting all ranting up here.
The burden of stress that's created by that, in my view, I feel these are the bad acts that ultimately fall on the shoulders of someone or some group, and I just don't see that ending well for those people, who pull these deals, who use their pen as such a incredible device for destruction. So, yeah, I know that. I've seen it in play. Exactly that scenario you just explained.
Yeah, it's because you're around elderly people, you understand what I'm talking about. Here's another thing that they do. Okay, so because Medicare only covers 60 to 90 days in a nursing home. All right. After that, Medicaid has to help pick up the tab. All right. Now, if let's say the person's 82 years old or 85, okay, they have their houses paid for, they got 2 kids. All right. The house is probably in disrepair, but it's still functional. All right. If that person has $2,000, $3,000 in the bank, all right, the government will seize that money. You have to drop the bank account below a certain value, like $1,800 or something. Okay, so you've got to get the bank account. I think it's below $2,000. So if they have a savings account, you have to get that savings account down. The way that what you would have to do is like maybe pay like 12 months in advance for trash service for trash service at the house. Put some extra money on the utilities. Go out and buy a tombstone. Prepay for that ahead of time. Anything you can do to drop that account down. But what they'll do,
they call that paying down. You've got to pay down the money that you have saved up.
Yeah.
Right.
Then okay, and this all comes down to the button pusher. You used to call them pencil pushers, button pushers now. All right. So Medicaid will then pick up the cost of the nursing home care. All right. Now say that person lives 6 months and then they pass away. Okay. Now Medicaid and they'll use third parties for auctions on all this, so make sure these corporate people are getting a cut of the pie. All right. They will take a look at that house. Okay. And if the house is paid for, all right, and it comes down, if the house is below a certain value, they might not take it. Sometimes they will. Sometimes it's probably going to be worth 30, 40 grand, they'll grab it. Sometimes it could be worth 60 grand, and they'll go, no, we're not going to mess with it. But Medicaid can go in and seize that house, even though that lady or guy, whoever was in the nursing home, was 85 and died, had left the house in the will to his kids. Okay? Sorry, can't do that. Medicaid's going to grab it to cover the cost of the nursing home. All right, so they're basically not being able to leave their children in that house, and that might be the only thing they have. So let's say the house is worth $100,000, although in today's dollars, probably more like $200,000. Say it's worth $200,000. Okay, so they're going to sell it for a quick sell at $180,000. That means that each, then they got taxes on it and everything else. Before taxes, each one of those 2 kids could get 90 grand. Or 50 grand or 60 grand. So let's say they have a mortgage on the house that they're living in, they could pay down that mortgage. Or they could put the money aside for the kids for college. Or they could get a new vehicle if they need it. Or they could use that money for a down payment on the house if they don't have one, to try and get their own. Or take out a loan on the house to buy out the sibling and keep the family home, keep it in the family. But the way Medicaid is, they can jump in and grab that house to cover the cost of the nursing home care. Bam. So sad, too bad. You know, so it's basically keeping the middle class down and keeping the working poor down. It takes away their chance to get ahead. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm talking really fast. I know that. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No. I got you. I got you.
Yeah, it takes away their chance to
There's
get ahead.
so much. And also what you're touching on, it doesn't even get into the details. It doesn't get into the fine print. You're just addressing the problems, and it's amazing. So yeah, keep on rolling.
Yeah, they're not doing anything. If you look at some of the Social Security income, they say 1,500. I think it's more like 1,200. Okay, in 2019, the average rent in this country for a decent one-bedroom apartment was around $900 a month. Now it's probably 1,200 a month. Easy.
Probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, and landlords across this country, especially if it's being run by a corporation or big business, the prospective renter has to have, they can have great credit, it doesn't matter. If you don't have 3 times the income to the rent, they will not rent to you. You have to have 3 times the rent. So if the rent is $1,000 a month, your income has to be $3,000.
Unless you have a cosigner. But
unless you have a cosigner, yeah. And and somebody who's 70 or years old or even in their 60s is like,
yeah, who's going to cosign? Right.
Yeah, who wants to one? You know, and they don't want to ask me to cosign. It's embarrassing, man. Yeah. Especially at that age. Yeah. You know, I mean, it's insane.
Yeah.
It's just totally insane. We don't, and landlords, having managed apartment complexes, I know how they work. I'm not saying the people I work for did this, but I do know how they work. Is they increase the rent every year, $5, $10, $20 a year, a month. They'll increase it per month every year, $5, $10, or $20, and there'll always be a property tax increase. Well, there might not have been a property tax increase really, and they'll also slight increase for utilities, even if there wasn't. Maintenance, even if the maintenance didn't cost more. They just throw out 3 basic things: maintenance, utilities, and property taxes are the reason to raise the rent. Okay, and a lot of times none of those 3 things are even in play. We talked about the supply chain earlier, and these big corporations have gotten caught doing this. There's a big chain coffee restaurant thing. We'll see who they are. All right, they just jacked up the prices of their coffee, of their special coffees, and they cited giving employees raises and supply chain issues. Okay, but however they've showed I think it was in the $1 billion range. Their profit margin jumped up in the last quarter. The same thing with a lot of these meat processing plants and everybody else. Here's what these corporations tend to do, and they always do this, is let's say that because of wage increases and insurance or whatever, okay, that the cost of producing a pound of hamburger jumped up by 5 cents, okay, and including transportation, okay, really transporting the product. Okay, say it jumped up 5 cents. These are hypothetical numbers, just bear with me. Okay, so what they'll do is rather than just raise the price $5, they'll jump the price up, or raise it 5 cents. They'll jump the price up 15, 20, or 30 cents a pound. Now they'll more than triple of the cost of the actual increase on them. Okay, because they go, okay, we can use inflation as an excuse and wage increases to jack the price up. Instead of being 5 cents, which is what it is, let's just move it up to 30 cents or 40 cents or 50 cents a pound. Then it gets off to the store, and some of these big national retailers, they'll do the same thing. Well, we had to give people raises, so we have more money invested here and blah, 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 blah. So it's costing them an extra 5 cents, okay? And instead of jacking it up 5 cents a pound for a hamburger, they'll jump it up 20 cents a pound or 30 cents a pound, because it's like, oh, here's an opportunity to raise the price. So, yeah, but that's going on a lot now. And that was brought up in the news a couple times that this was going on. However, they're not doing anything about it. That they're just not. It's like when insurance companies decided to add this out-of-pocket expense You had Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, and a bunch of other politicians on both sides of the aisle were screaming and yelling, well, that's just another deductible. You're doubling the deductibles. They go, oh, no, it's out of pocket. They had big congressional hearings and, oh, we're going to make this stop. We're going to jig it down to the bottom of this. It sounds like racketeering. They're all in on it. They have these big hearings that last for a couple of days, if that. Boom, bam, that was years ago. And nothing gets done. And we still have the out of pocket, and you still have the deductible. So, if they're going to do what they do, I really, they go after your last cent. I'm sorry for rambling there, guys.
No,
I'm not letting you guys get a word in edgewise.
No, that
amazing. No, go.
Yeah, no, that was an important ramble, and keep on going.
I think the most important thing out of my rambling today is that if the 2016 if the elections were rigged, whether 2016 or 2020, if the 2016 election was rigged, and it's theoretical that they kept her out of office to prevent disclosure, and then we got the UAP task force as a consolation prize. I think that's possible.
I think it's very possible. Yeah.
So I think it's very plausible that happened. But I don't think the 2020 was rigged because they knew that Trump was going to be screaming, and they dotted their I's and crossed their T's on it. I mean, it's like he keeps saying, 5,000 people in Georgia that were dead voted. We had multiple Republicans, Democrats, independent people came in. They went through all the records. They ran the ballot. They ran all the registrations. They found four dead people in Georgia voted. Not 5,000, 4. And out of that 4, 3 of them voted for Trump. And they're prosecuting the people that did those things. But
what that does, as minuscule as those numbers are, that means there's some part of my. Well, we're not on the Fringe FM right now, so I can go ahead and say it. There's some fuckery going on.
Oh yeah, there is.
Yeah. So
there is.
We can't say that there was
part of it.
We can't say that there was no voting fraud because because there most certainly was, just as there was in every single election since Bush Sr.'s initial election.
There's an old saying: presidents are selected or not elected.
Using the same voting machines that have been used since then till today, that have been proven through that documentary, Hacking. What is it called again?
Hacking Democracy.
Hacking Democracy.
And we remember now in 2016 we talked about this. The trailer for that, and I think the whole documentary was available on YouTube. And I think it was like August or September in the 2016 election cycle. That video was no longer available until after the election was over. They pulled it down. They didn't pull it down. They just, when you went to it, it was just a blank gray screen. They didn't pull it down. It was like a blank gray screen. Either so many people were watching that you couldn't see it, which usually get an error message, but you didn't even get that. I just got the blank gray screen. Yeah. And it was like, what? And I don't know, but I think that disclosure was part of the reason where we're at right now. But we need, don't let my warning to everybody out there, don't let them reach into your emotions, man. That's a form of mind control. It's a window in. And sometimes I find myself having to step back and go, I'm not going to get taken advantage of in this way where they're going to control me by my emotions. I don't like any of them. I don't care what side of the aisle they're on. I just don't like it. There's a few I might have some respect for, but very far few and in between. If you go listen to some old Jim Mars or John Anthony West videos,
Jim Mars, man,
they make snide comment. I think Stanton Freeman might have too, but John Anthony West and Jim Mars both did, and I think they were U.S. citizens, as where Freeman was Canadian.
Yeah, they were.
But you go listen to them sometimes, especially the last thing that John Anthony West did. He makes some snide remarks, and both of them do. Both Jim Mars and John Anthony West make snide remarks, pretty much kind of similar to what I'm saying now. There might be some variations, but I don't. You know, I worry a great deal for the United States. I really, really do. I really, 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 really do. Um, because it's just, there's so much screwed up. I listened to a show a few years ago. I don't know where it was on, where they talked about these free trade agreements, and I mean, Trump did NAFTA 3.0, 4.0. I can't keep track anymore. And we had a bunch of Ford jobs go down to Mexico immediately after that. I mean, the plant was already built, so they knew it was going to pass. Already built the factory down there, and that's where assembly is being done now for the GM new GM Blazers is being assembled in Mexico. So it's like, he didn't really do anything. But at any rate, and this comes back to the supply chain issue. And somebody brought this up years ago that we're going to have a problem with the supply chain. I wish I could remember where I heard it on. I think it was like one of these national public radio shows or something like that. It wasn't some off-the-wall thing. Is that the free trade agreement really hurt Mexico, and it really hurt South America, and even South America, but it hurt Central America really bad because the U.S. farmers, and a lot of these are, let me change that word, the U.S. corporate-owned farms, okay, corporate-owned farms, more than the U.S. farmers that are individually owned by a family, all right, because of the equipment they're using and the mass producing that they're doing of food, the way that we farm up here in our accessible farmland, which is really hurting right now, but they were shipping a lot of food and undercutting the price for people who are growing corn in the foothills and stuff in Central America. So those farmers could no longer sell their crops at the local market because they have to, they don't have big giant supermarkets like we do. They got open markets and stuff like that. So they couldn't sell their food down there anymore because the American corporations were undercutting their food prices. And all of a sudden they've got no income, no way to support themselves. Okay? The supply problem in reverse to what we're seeing now is we were supplying too bad. And what the person pointed out was we need to stop this because if we stop sending all the corn and everything else down there, these farmers are going to be able to grow corn in the hillsides, provided climate change isn't destroying them, because that is a problem down there, and support their families, and they're not going to be coming up here as often. And you wouldn't have as much gang activity and criminal activity because people would be resorting to crime to support for money. If it can be done in the United States, it should be done in the United States. If it can be done in Central America, it should be done in Central America. If it can be done in Mexico, it should be done in Mexico for the people that are living there. So, Mexico, rather than importing vehicles from the United States, fine. If Ford wants to build those trucks or Chevy wants to build those Blazers and sell them in Mexico, go right ahead. But you want to sell those in the United States, they need to be built and sold in the United States. When GM went last year, or a couple of years ago, 2-3 years ago, and they stopped making the small cars in the United States, and they moved the plants over to Asia, I don't care. I think it's a good move. GM should have done that because they're not selling the small cars in the United States. However, they're being sold like hotcakes in Asia because they're smaller cars, they have smaller roads, and they don't have the weather extremes we do like in the Midwest here, where people like to have those four-wheel drives. And I'm glad I got a four-wheel drive. And so I understand GM made that move there. Good move. GM should do that. But, if you want to sell Blazers in the U.S., you should make them in the U.S. You want to sell Fords, you should make them in the U.S. You want to sell them in Mexico, make them in Mexico. You want to sell them in Canada, make them in Canada. So the people that are there have jobs. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the people there have jobs.
Oh, yeah.
So, we can't, these free trade agreements, there's some things that are going to go back and forth, like coffee. We just can't grow good coffee up here. Puerto Rico, though, can grow some really good coffee, and that's a U.S. territory. But that's a whole other topic, how badly we're screwing over Puerto Rico. Oh, my word. Those are U.S. citizens, too. But yeah, Puerto Rico can grow some really great coffee. But, yeah, there's some products like bananas, for example. You're not growing those in the U.S. Rice, a lot of rice in Northern California can get growing there. But, yeah, it just doesn't... or here's something we do that's really stupid. we subsidize dairy farmers in the United States because their dairy farms aren't producing any money. Well, fewer people are eating ice cream, fewer people are drinking milk, fewer people are eating cheese. Our society is moving away from a dairy diet slowly. I still enjoy my ice cream and cheese, but I haven't drank straight out milk in decades, man, probably since the 1970s, you know. Maybe mid 70s, late 70s, the last time I drank a glass of milk. We're moving away from that. And rather than say to the farmers, okay, well, stop making milk because you're losing money and we keep subsidizing you, we're going to help you, subsidize you, but you're going to need to move from dairy-based farming to something else, whether it's solar farming, windmill farming. You can farm windmills and solar panels and still have crops planted between the solar panels and between the windmills, and lease land and make money that way. There's a military base on the East Coast right now that was preparing to go almost off the grid with solar panels, and the local power company, I don't know if it's North or South Carolina, or somewhere on the East Coast, is trying to take them to court to prevent them from putting up those solar panels and going off the grid, or getting as little power off the grid as possible. They're still going to get money from the power from the grid, but the solar panels is going to greatly reduce that. And the power company went to court. It's in court right now, trying to prevent the U.S. military from putting those solar panels up because they're going to lose money supplying electricity to the military base. Isn't that crazy?
It is crazy. And
yeah,
we want to have a military base that's not relying on the grid. Hey, that's a good thing. One, that's good for the environment. Two, let's say the power grid goes down. That military base still has power, which means they can still have the runways going, and they can do stuff, and they can communicate and help the country in the event of a natural disaster because they're not relying on the grid. If the grid went down because of a solar flare or an EMP pulse that was set off in the atmosphere above the United States. That's a good thing to have that military base off the grid. I think they should all go off the grid if possible, where they have the option of being on the grid and they have backup where the power is being produced locally, not just generators, but solar panels and everything else. I think it's a great idea. And why these power companies are fighting it and telling them to stop is ridiculous. It makes no, I would say it makes no sense. It makes sense that they're trying to make money. The power company doesn't want to lose its customers. It's just, who is it? Tesla. We talked about that before, about getting people off the grid with free energy. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I mean, once you get into free energy, you get shut down
real quick.
Yeah. That's kind of it. Yeah.
Oh, Andrew Yang talked about that actually when he was campaigning for president. It wasn't long after that he dropped out.
I
he was
like
talking
that guy.
about.
I like that guy.
Yeah, I don't agree with him on everything, but I do like him. I like his universal basic income idea. I really did, because if you're not raising a minimum wage, it ain't gone up in decades. I mean, Kentucky, Wisconsin, stuff, they're still at $7.25 an hour, man.
Yeah, but you know what? We have to. We are out of time. So.
Well, speaking of time, if you haven't seen Dark on Netflix, it's a twisted time travel movie. Go watch it. CasperParks.com. Get my new book, Accidental Destiny. It's only 99 cents for the ebook. People, other nations may vary, but because of currency exchange. But CasperParks.com. Go download my books, man. You don't write a book and make money. Okay, that's just doesn't happen. Trust me.
There you go.
So,
and
thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, no, thank you for coming on and sharing your knowledge. And but what was that show you just recommended on Netflix?
Oh, Dark.
Dark. Is this called
It's
Dark?
a time travel. Time travel.
Okay. That might be what I do exactly after this. So
yeah, it was written to run 3 seasons. It's extremely twisted. It has a lot of sex in it, violence, smoking cigarettes, all kinds of stuff like that. It's extremely twisted, though.
Well, I smoke a lot of cigs.
It's one of the best time travels I've ever seen. It's filmed in Germany, dubbed over in English. It's good.
Right on. Oh, poor cat in the background. All right. Well, Casper, thank you so much for coming on. And by the way, folks, for all of his novels and everything he's written, go to www.casperparks.com and get all of your good stuff from there. With that, we have to run right this very now. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Shift Happens for the Fringe FM. The show is hosted and produced by yours truly, GG, and co-host tonight was JP. Where can they follow you, JP?
Reperceptions on Twitter.
Reperceptions on Twitter. All right. Again, I want to thank Serena Wright Taylor for the whole weekend that we just had this last weekend over at the Conscious Life Expo. And special thanks goes to Brad Harris, our associate producer. And again, special thanks to JP, our co-host. And with that, all blames and faults go to Fran. That's right. Hashtag Fran's fault. All right, folks. Thanks for tuning in, but don't go too far because coming up next on the Fringe FM is Lighting the Void with Joe Root. All right, folks. We'll see you sooner than later, and by sooner than later, I mean next Friday with Alan Steinfeld. That's right! You heard it here first. All right. Good night, folks.